Tennis is a racket sport that finds its origin in 12th century France. At this time, the rules were simple and the ball was simply struck with the palm of your hand. This predecessor to tennis was called jeu de paume, game of the palm, and quickly became popularized. Louis V of France became one of its many fans and is notable as the first ever person to construct an indoor tennis court similar to what we today would recognize. Rackets only came to use in the 16th century, and it was also then when the game started being referred to as tennis, a term that was developed from the French term tennis, meaning hold, receive, and take. The sport was popularized by royalty. The International Tennis Federation was established in 1913 by 12 national associations, and today holds 211 national associations, only speaking to its popularity. The rules established by the Federation in 1924 have remained, in large, the foundation for the game.
The governing body for the sport in Australia is called Tennis Australia, and it is the organization that promotes as well as conducts the domestic and international tournaments on behalf of the country. Australia first became an important player within the tennis world in the 1950s when the Australian men's team won the Davis Cup, which is the premier international team event in men's tennis, 15 times between 1950 and 1967. Moreover, Tennis Australia hosts the Australian Open, which is the first Grand Slam of the year. The Grand Slam tournaments, or the majors, is a collective term for the four most important annual tennis events: the Australian Open, the French Open, Wimbledon, and the US Open. The Australian Open was first played in 1905 in Melbourne, but has since been staged in other Australian cities as well as in 2 New Zealand cities in different years. Since 1972, though, it has remained only in Melbourne. Just like the International Tennis Federation holds an international ranking system for both male and female tennis players, the ITF also conducts a junior tour in order to establish a world ranking for the youth. To be eligible to enter as a junior player, you must be under the age of 18 and still be legally protected by your parents or guardians. This, however, does not necessarily mean that you will not be allowed to play in the main adult tour, as you can also do so if you have special documents that are signed by your parents or guardian. Unlike the adult tours, junior tours do not offer prize money except for in the juniors' Grand Slams. The best male and female player within a country will enter into a country's youth tennis team and will participate in competitions such as the Junior Davis Cup and the Junior Fed Cup.
Within Australia, a link has existed between sport and alcohol for decades. A number of professional sporting teams are often affiliated with alcohol-producing companies through sponsorship agreements. Athletes and coaches are often seen celebrating a win with alcohol. Additionally, alcohol is very much a part of the culture of sport watching. Alcohol is served at nearly every major sporting event. Alcohol companies gain great revenue from selling their products at sporting events. For the game of tennis, alcohol is often served at major professional tennis tournaments, including those held in venues from the east and west coasts of Australia. Tennis is linked very closely to the social hierarchy in many countries, including Australia. People attend tennis matches not only to watch the sport, but to also socialize with the community of people at the sport. People are therefore inclined to drink alcohol as a way of fueling the social aspects of the event. Professional tennis has been a component of Australian culture for years. Professional tennis is highly televised. Youth tennis players idolize professional tennis players. Major professional tennis championships such as Ken Rosewall and Rod Laver are glorified by the youth tennis players of Australia. Because alcohol is closely linked to the professional tennis, youth tennis players are therefore prone to associate tennis with alcohol. As a result, those adolescents are more likely to engage in the consumption of alcohol. There are multiple dangerous short and long-term effects alcohol has on the youth. For example, alcohol causes dehydration and slower decision-making. Additionally, it can cause soft tissue injury and extend recovery time. The dangers of alcohol extend beyond the physical harms to the body. Alcohol may cause athletes to be less stringent with their appropriate recovery strategies and diet. Athletes may also place themselves in more dangerous situations with an increased chance of violence.
Additionally, Alan Fox, who is a former Wimbledon quarterfinalist and author of the book Tennis, Winning the Mental Match, has a PhD in psychology and has done extensive research within the mentality of tennis players. He writes that he has worked mostly with highly motivated junior tournament tennis players and that the most common problem is excess stress. This is due to many hours being put into practice on the court and tournaments being held most weekends, leaving little time for the players to relax and reflect. The excess effort they put in is often a result of aiming towards university scholarship and joining the pro tour. As in all sports, they are driven to win, to have a shot at achieving their goals. But unfortunately, no matter how much they train, winning is always uncertain, leading to excessive stress, nervousness, and underperformance. Despite best intentions, well-meaning parents can often make the problem worse. Chris Harwood, another psychologist within the sports and exercise field, chose tennis as his template to investigate stress within the parents of aspiring tennis players and how their stress ultimately transfers to their children. He found that the stress within parents comes from three general dimensions. Firstly, organization, emerging from issues within finance, time, training, and coaching. Secondly, competitive, relating to behavior, performance, and morality related issues. Finally, developmental, centered around educational issues, uncertainty of tennis transition, and future decision making. As a means of coping with this excessive stress presented to players starting from a young age, not just in tennis but in all competitive sports, many players are thought to turn to substances such as tobacco, alcohol, and other illicit drugs. A study conducted in France from 1999 to 2003 with the purpose of studying the relationship between sporting activity and the use of substances mentioned before amongst adolescents found that there is in fact a correlation between the two.